Hello, good afternoon. Nice to be with you again. And my name is Vincent, Yellow Woman, and we're coming to you live from the Blackfoot Historical Park. And this is
Blackfoot Crossing Historical Park. You always forget the crossing.
the crossing.
Sayukpao.
Sayukpao.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm Butch Wolf. I'm his puppet. He kind of moves my mouth around while he's showing his voice.
So it's Blackfoot Crossing Historical Park.
Good.
Interpretive Center.
Yeah.
Okay, if you ever get a chance to come here, when you go down and look at the displays, one of it is the residential school here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're talking about. That's where you might find us. If you ever come here, we're usually on, we won't be on next Wednesday.
Could be. We'll figure it out, yeah.
We'll figure it out. So, but we're usually here Wednesday every 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. So if you come around, we'll see you after our session. So we had a good week this week, and last week we talked about a little bit about, of course, where have we come from? We started off with the unmarked graves that were discovered at Kamloops, 215, and it just kind of made it just kind of woke up Canada. People are saying, I never knew. I heard so many people say, I did not know. So people were shocked by it. They were starting to wake up, okay, what's happening? What took place and all that. So but it didn't take us by surprise.
No.
We knew.
We'd already heard things.
Yeah, we heard, and we know about the residential school, and we're not doctors by any chance, psychologists by any chance, or some PhDs, but we're survivors. We actually went to a residential school. We both came out of them, so I don't know how real you can get. So you get into real stuff right here, right now. And so ever since then, we've been talking about residential school survivors, the impact and so forth. And it's interesting, people are coming to grips of it, and all of a sudden, we had people that want to come and help us. And so we've been kind of sorting through that, navigating through that, and trying to help them. And then people come up on board to want to know about our culture, our language, just exactly how they can help us when they do come here. Some things to be aware of. And what we're doing is very hard. It takes a long time for people to understand our culture. It's not a one-day thing. So you need to live amongst us. Some of you have been watching for how long? You can answer that to yourself. And you might say, I've never been to a reservation. This is what I say to people when I go to speak at different places. And I get an opportunity and I tell the people, I said, I hear people, I've never been to a reservation and never met a First Nation, but you're hearing First Nation survivors. And what have you heard about First Nations? Of course, they talk about this, mostly about the negative stuff. So, well, you're talking to you, and I've been sober, well over 50 years. And this guy's been sobered well over 80 years. So you're looking at guys here, and so you can put that on your list. Oh, I know two guys. Put their years together. It's well over 100 years they've been sober, and so there you go. Now quit saying you never met an Indian that was sober. You're meeting us, and so. Anyways, this whole thing started with that, and there's an uproar, and it's a kind of shot up, and my speaking and engagements on residential schools just shot through the roof, and now it's just kind of leveling down. People got busy and COVID and so forth. But I want to tell you something, and Butch is going to talk about this. We've been living through this from the first time the newcomers came. That's the Europeans. That's the government. Over 100 years. Before that, we had our own lives. We had our own way. And then when the newcomers came, it kind of upset the whole thing. They want to take our land. And not only our land, they weren't satisfied with taking all that, but they wanted to take the dignity, our identity, our culture, our language, our values away. And so we've been living through that, through policies, legislations, and the list goes on to make it difficult for us First Nation then. So now, when you say, I didn't know this was happening at residential school. I never knew about unmarked graves. Now there's more than that. And we're still battling with that. Today we have, I know 6 guys are part of a court action with a number of First Nations. We're taking the government to court. And the government is saying, no, we never did that. We never tried to destroy their language. No, we didn't do that. No. They've been doing that to us right from the beginning. Now, as you become aware of all these things, we're still living through it. We still have to fight for our survival, and we'll continue to survive. And our kids, our grandkids are going to come out of this, and they'll be okay with it because of the values and the power and the strength of who we are as First Nation. And so, it's good that there's people that want to know what's happening to us, and don't give us your culture. We don't want that. You help us by understanding and appreciate who we are. And those are the strengths that we want to give to you guys. Iga kutsuwa so kiston. And it's Steve kiston. There are things that we battle every year of our lives. One of those is a big thing, is the Indian Act. The Indian Act has never left the First Nation communities. It's always there. It's a stumbling block. We didn't create that. The Indian Act wasn't created by Siksika people, by the Cree people, the Soto. It wasn't. It was created in Ottawa years ago. A long time ago. It was created by those. We didn't have no input whatsoever. So we continued to struggle with those legislations. And so we're thankful. I don't know, Butch, if you want to carry a little bit of that and talk about if you know some cases that Siksika is a part of. And people need to understand, yes, the residential school was awful. It was a legislation. It was a law that to go and kill the Indian and the child. And then now there's other things that are happening today. Thank you.
Well, just hearkening back to the beginnings of this residential school over 150 years ago, the Canadian government at the time, under Sir John A. Macdonald, they drafted the Indian Act, and those words were spoken that we need to kill the Indian and the child, and that formulated policies to strip us of our language, our way of life, our way of our faith, our spiritual ways, and also to take the child away from the parents and grandparents who were seen as duly unbad influence regarding these things that we're trying to take away, especially our language. So the Indian Act in itself is quite the genocidal policy or legislation that has governed us to this day. To this day, it still governs us. There have been amendments to it. Just like some of the amendments have been now that we can actually hire lawyers to fight on our behalf regarding certain things that the government has done illegally. Also, we have a chance to, we finally got a chance to vote. So, and we're a growing population across Canada that has quite the voting numbers. So now we're able to vote. We're able to take the government to court regarding claims and so forth. And just to speak a little bit about the Indian Act and Blackfoot Historical Park, where we're broadcasting from. The whole Indian Act is displayed here, and you can walk through it and read some of those statements, which are very, how would you say it, very racist and prejudicial towards ourselves as Niitsitapiikuan. That's our way of describing ourselves, Niitsitapiikuan. It comes from the term ni tukska, which is ni, and matapi, so Niitsitapi. So we're individual human beings. That's the way we describe ourselves. And that's some of the terms that a lot of even our young people are misinterpreting. So we're kind of here to kind of correct those things, because there's a new form of communications that's starting now, and when people start learning the language and duly influenced by non-native people who took a stab at trying to figure out what our language was all about. But it's a very age-old language. So that was one of the issues when they started talking about this truth and reconciliation calls to action. One of them is language. That's one of the areas. There's 5 areas within the truth and reconciliation calls to action. One of them is language. That's supposed to right those wrongs regarding the loss and also the resurgence of our language, to be able to put resources towards that. And as Vincent had talked about, we're not PhDs or masters and whatever, but in the Niitsitapi context, in the individual human being thinking, we have all this experience. We've lived these things. We've lived the culture. We've lived our way of life. We've lived through these ceremonies. We've experienced all that, even to the point of having to defend ourselves when people try to, how would you say it, they start to change things to fit their way of thinking. So we're kind of guardians of that, you might say, because we lived it. And So in a way, you can put us as PhDs in Siksika way of life. So that's some of the things that the survivors have had to live through, and we're not the only ones. Our parents and our grandparents lived through those, and right down to even our children. We're still going to day schools at the residential schools here. There's two of them here on Siksika. Old Sun Residential School and Crowfoot Residential School. They still had day schools going, still following the same procedures. And so they were. That's why they have this day school lawsuit that has started up, and I think it's going to be sorted out within the next few years or whatever. We had a settlement, not a settlement, that we were granted so much money being residential school survivors. They were called common experience payment. So anybody who went to residential school, we all got a common experience payment depending on the years and that we spent in residential school. And it was in our minds, it was like a pittance in regards to the values, our value as human beings that were cut down. So there's those things. So that's one of the calls to action is language. The other one is child welfare. A lot of our children were taken away. We didn't have any input in that. So now we have children that have been taken away and are finding their way home because they age out. When they're 18, they're not the parents or foster parents or adoptive parents that took them in. They just kind of let them go. And so we've got children under there that are lost. And now we're taking a look at putting together our own legislation, our own laws regarding child welfare, and bringing our children home from all over Canada, even from different countries where they were adopted out and sent to. So that's the second one of the pieces of the Truth and Reconciliation, child welfare, language. The other one is education. As Vincent said, we've learned everything about the non-native culture. Even overseas, we studied Africa, we studied China, we studied USA, Mexico, but nobody has ever taken a look at who we are and what we brought into this, brought into Canada being a country that is still rated as one of the best countries to be in. But at the same time, you've got an underlying layer of the foundation on which it was built, which was our lands. I saw a t-shirt one time that somebody had written up a t-shirt, if you're living in Canada, thank an Indian. And that's very, very true. All these lands in Canada were all Indian lands. And they were part of different territories of different tribes within southern Alberta, Blackfoot Confederacy, consisting of Siksika, us, Kainai, Piikani, and the Blackfeet in Montana. We owned a fair part of Alberta and part of Montana and part of Saskatchewan and part of Missouri. Those are very interesting bits of information, or I should say North Dakota. But those are areas that previously that were our traditional lands. But we don't like to say traditional anymore. We'd rather say Siksika lands. And so anybody who's making a living off the land, living on the land, traveling across the land, realize that was all ours. And as Vincent has mentioned, that's some of the things that they were after, to put us into these little reserves, little fenced off areas that we were, I guess you could say, roundabout way, they kind of herded us into these little places which had a whole bunch of rules attached to them, with where you couldn't leave the reserve unless you have a specific reason. So you could actually say the reserves were actually like penal colonies that were watched over by the law enforcement. At the time was Northwest Mounted Police, and now it's RCMP or any other jurisdiction that may be surrounding First Nations reserve across Canada. So that was the other piece. So we've got the child welfare, we got the language, and the education, which I'm talking about. We are asking you to learn about us and the sordid history. Like, history cannot all be glazed over with platitudes of getting along, and we had a fair deal, we were treated properly. The lands, education, that's something that is our, as we like to tell our young people, our new weapon is education. And that allows all of our young people to forge ahead with their education in all the institutions and the post-secondary institutions that offer their accreditation, so to speak, in the various interests that they may be following. So education, I would probably say not a lot of non-native people, you haven't even finished comparing. I would compare it to the elementary school education of who we are. So you're very, very weak in that area. And that's something that needs to be rectified through these truth and reconciliation calls to action. So that's the education. The other thing is justice. We have a lopsided justice system that will actually put our people in jail as a form of punishment without following all the different ways that they could be rehabilitated. And as one learned judge said to us here, he said, I am not going to send people to jail anymore. It doesn't work. We need to find new ways. That's the justice part. There's a different way that we can be doing things, and you need to ask us and other people as to how we can do that, and how we can rehabilitate our wrongdoers. In our language, we say nepataps, which means they made a mistake. So now they have to correct that mistake. And part of correcting that mistake doesn't mean putting them behind bars and fences and whatever, and have the whole residential school experience again as to when they eat and what they can wear and what they can do and what they can't do. It's just it becomes an extension of the residential school process that will continue until we look at ways of dealing with justice. And also having justice is an interesting word to us because we look at justice as a way of correcting a mistake and then moving on from there, not to ever do that, learn from that mistake. So that's justice part. The other thing is we talked about the language, education, justice. The other piece is education. I already talked about education. The other pieces are child welfare that I've talked about. And finally, another interesting piece regarding the truth and reconciliation is health. That is through our involvement with different foods and medicines and whatever over the years, we've weakened our bodies when we moved away from our hunter-gatherer existence that our ancestors did. And so there are ways that we need to reform that area according to health, because that involves things such as drinking water. There are First Nations still living today that don't have proper drinking water, and they're still boiling their water. Some of them over 30 years now. They've been waiting for the proper drinking water. And then the government sends billions of dollars overseas to help suffering nations and foreign countries, to help them with their food and their starvation and their drinking water and healthy living conditions, when we have it right here in our own backyard. So that's another thing you have to learn about. So there are a lot of different pieces to that Truth and Reconciliation. There's 94 calls to action. And ever since those were brought forth, not even 20% have been acted on. So there's a long road ahead, and it needs everybody's involvement. And underlying all of this was people not knowing about us properly. A lot of people go on stereotypes and racist reactions about who we are. And those are still happening today. And even in government circles, there are people sitting in government who are, how would you say it, secretly racist. They're not going to come out with it, but they're going to battle hard against anything that they feel that our people are working at. And so there's always that underlying attitude. But we attribute that to education. Because people nowadays, they learn a lot of these things. They're not born with them. They learn them in the home, which is the primary place of learning about race, being racist, and looking at people of color differently. And so they carry on their parents' teachings of that. And their parents have been given these teachings by their grandparents. So this is a family issue that needs to be turned around. And there are many stories nowadays of people finally saying, that's enough. I'm not going to listen to what my parents told me about you guys. I'm going to learn. And those are the kind of signs of hope that we have. So I just wanted to kind of go over the summary of the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. Go to the website. You can go to Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls to action. They're all in there. And they even have an update as to which ones they've done and which ones they're working on them and so forth. But this can't be done overnight. It needs to be done by people that are in positions of authority, and I mean in the family home too. The position of authority are parents, and even the aunts and uncles that the parents might not hold these views, but there's aunts and uncles that are raised with that form of distorted thinking and feeling. So just thought I'd bring them up to speed on all that.
That's quite a lot of. So when you're sitting there, and I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and you just got a wake up call, and you're finally realizing 215 unmarked graves, and now the numbers are getting higher, and you never realized that all these things were happening, not only the residential school. So you can appreciate some of the challenges that we're facing. And Butch just mentioned a few of those. And So it's not over. We've got much more stuff that we have to face with, and I know Siksika is taking some court actions on some of the things that Butch mentioned, and not only us, but other First Nations across Canada. And so it's interesting to hear all those stuff that are happening. And that's simply because we're saying, this is ours, this is who we are, this is our right, and this was taken away from us, and so on and so forth. And so enough is enough. If we have to take it to court, we will. So a little bit about the snapshot of so I just want to thank Butch for that. You know, not too long ago, I received a call. It was kind of disturbing to me. Over at Nose Hill in the city of Calgary, there's right on top of the hill is what they call a rock formation. And that rock formation, when the media talks about it, they call it, what is it?
Medicine wheel? Or?
Medicine wheel or so forth. And the elder at the time did not call it a medicine wheel, simply because some of our neighbors, they do that. When I say neighbors, the Crees and so forth. But Kiston on Blackfoots, so we didn't use the word, but we it's the rock formation that we set up, and the elders did a wonderful job. I was there. I was one of the chiefs at that time when we put up that rock formation. I was there, along with the chief from the Butch tribe, Charlie Weaselhead, myself, and some elders, some society members. We were all up on that hill when it was done. They called us and they said, the elders that are going to pray a blessing over this, and we're going to open it to the public. So it was a proud moment. The media was there and so forth, and it was a proud moment because to showcase Siksika people, and so I was very proud to see that. About a month ago, I got a call. Some people went up there and they started to destroy,
vandalizing.
Yeah, what was done, what was built in there. And it really disturbed me because what I found out was that the people that were instrumental in vandalizing that were people that belonged to a church. And so they were putting their own formation of, I don't know, Christianity, whatever it is, in that rock formation. And it really disturbed me. And somebody was telling me, he said, how do you feel about that? I said, how would they like it if I went to their church and I walked right in and I started changing things around and saying, do this and that? You know, they would call the police on me. They would kick me out. I don't know what they would. They won't appreciate it. And so, first of all, they showed lack of respect. And so to this day, we continue to face that. And it was when I go up to, I've been to several different countries of the world. And when I see the peoples of those, the First Nations of those indigenous people of those countries, and they show me their culture building, they're hundreds of, some of them thousands of years old, I don't move anything. I respect them. And that's what we're saying. And we continue to face that. And for whatever reason, those two individuals that messed around and vandalized that, and they showed clear disrespect for us First Nation, and so I was upset about that because I know the hard work that went to work and putting that up, and our elders, some of them are gone, and they were happy, and it's just a proud moment, and we had a time of blessing, we had a time of prayer up in Nose Hill. So if you get a chance to go up there and you see the rock formation on top of Nose Hill, remember there was a chief that was part of it. I was one of them. And so just to let you know, we continue to live with that. And I'm glad people are coming on board and slowly coming in to appreciate, understand, and accept some of our ways, and want to build a relationship with us in a good way. So I appreciate that.
Just one note regarding the issue of hope. You see hope? I was in one of the stores in Strathmore. That's a town that borders just off our nation here, and we've started a community, I guess you could say, cooperation regarding these truth and reconciliation calls to action. So we're working very closely with Strathmore regarding that. And when this started, I went into one of the stores, and the person that met me in the store, he said, "Okay." And I thought, wow. And I responded, "Okay." And then when I left there, when I was leaving, he said, "Kakitamat," which means I'll see you again, because in Blackfoot, in Siksika, we have no word for goodbye. Our way of saying goodbye is, "I'll see you again." And that's what he told me in Siksika, and I just, it really made my day. I just told him, which means yes, kakitamat. So even if you use those kind of greetings, that goes a long ways to acknowledging us as a people that have our way of life, our culture, and that we're still living today. And those kind of gestures really go a long ways to start the healing. And that maybe is one of the things that we'll take a look at in our next broadcast. We'll take a look at our personal healing journey, how that started. And Vincent talked about addictions. We've been sober for, I won't say exactly, but around 50 years each. And that's how we started our road to recovery and retaining our language, our culture, which is our way of life, and also beginning to educate other people about who we are. Because one of the things we need is we need people who are well to begin to start this education process. A lot of our people are still very stuck in the addictions area. And that's another area that we need a lot of help with, to help ourselves, but also resources towards that. And that, I think those were some of the things that would fit under that health call to action, because that is one of the major things that are ravaging our community still, is the area of addictions. And so that's just the truth.
Yeah.
And sometimes our people don't like to hear that, because once you call somebody on their drinking, the first thing they'll do is they'll deny. So we still have a lot of denial going on.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of hope. There's two of us here. There's a lot of us out there that are been sober for many years.
Yeah.
A lot of our in Blackfoot we say ninitaka,
Yeah.
which means my close friends.
Yeah.
We've all sobered up.
Yeah.
And we're starting to give back to the community in ways of teaching our younger ones, our families, about what our life is all about. So there's signs of hope. So remember those two words. Oki. Kagidamat.
Good. Thank you. You know what? It's end of our time today, and just want to thank you for being a part of it. And I just want to thank Blackfoot Crossing Historical Park for their work, the technicians that are doing a good job behind the scene, making it very clear. And we got some mics in here, cameras in here, and so they're doing a good job. So you guys can see a clear picture. You can see and hear a good voice coming through, and the noise and the volume and so forth. So that I couldn't do that. So thank BCHP, and then also we want to thank the sponsors for making this possible. And without that, we won't be able to share some of the knowledge. Like we said, we're not doctors, we don't have PhD, but we are survivors. We are the walls of the residential school. Get a much.
Kagidamat.
Hayo kindoni tipata. Ita amskrako ikuku. Nita patua pi kitsinihka semina kokawatu yitsipin. Hayo nako tseptot kitsinaisin. Hani kanstauka kitsmato pi ta amskrako. Ano kanstauka kitsmatot no ksako. No katrukinana no ksistiko iknapain. Minokat desk nit nitsiptsapsinanst. Ni tuita ko katanistas kiksu kuamana no mix nit ko Mr. Tokinanix. Minoko maiks cooking. Okay, kamotipio kinan sao mitsitapita kita waste cooking. Kisto na kitsitukanein. Kitsitukanes kunataps. Kitsitukanawatu waps. Kimatrukusikti. Amen.